Do you feel like in 20, I feel like the whole country figured out during the bubble run, that you guys were sort of building something. Did you guys know beforehand, or did things kind of
It kind of just
crystallize there?
crystallized there. Over the course of the season, man, we had lost so many close games. Like typical young team doesn't really know how to close games. Still a work in progress, but we felt like we were in a lot. So we felt like we were building towards something positive. But the practices that we had pre-bubble and when we got there were super high levels, super competitive. Guys were locked in, and I don't, the mindset was just like, and the mindset the entire time was, it don't matter what anybody else do. We have 8 games of a season left. Go out and win every one of them. And we can be satisfied with the result if we go out and put our best foot forward every single day of practice, every single night on the court. And so that was where, we were a young team. Guys didn't, only 1 or 2 guys had kids. So everybody's like, I'm fresh out of college. This is like we're back in college, So I was enjoying it. You got
month-long AAU trip.
And exactly. And the state of the world at the time, we weren't outside hanging out with friends anyway. So like we're able to hang out with our friends and hoop with our friends. Like we were all just excited to be able to continue our season and be able to continue to play. And I think that looking back, that vantage point alone gave us an advantage because I don't think every team viewed it like that. And so we just kind of took advantage of it and rolled. And we played hard. We pressed.
Yeah.
Like we are picking up full every game. Like we just wanted to play harder than teams.
The bubble was a great separator of not just teams, but like players that actually wanted to be there versus players and teams that didn't want to be there. I do find it fascinating. Thank you for your service to the NBA, by the way, for you guys coming, because I find it fascinating that they made you come to the bubble. Where if you could go 8-0, you
relatively
still,
no chance. Mathematically, we had a chance, and it
3%? It was something crazy like
if
that.
Brooklyn would have beaten Portland,
Right,
which came down to a Karis LeVert pull-up jump shot,
yeah,
then we would have been in the play-in. So it was,
it was a possibility. Yeah,
it was a real possibility.
You guys did your thing, and also low key, the bubble was not that bad.
And how many teams in NBA history have gone out on a win that weren't it's like we felt like we won something.
That's interesting.
We're the only other team in the bubble that really felt like we won something.
It is a weird what
season.
if. Yeah. Like, there's no way to obviously, say this definitively, but like if you just hadn't gone to the bubble and obviously the trade
we
with
wouldn't
Chris
have been the
happens,
same team.
You wouldn't have had the same.
The trade with Chris was probably like, okay, this team can make noise. They're probably not as
right.
hungry.
He probably doesn't.
Yes, he's not coming to the Suns.
Right.
If it weren't for this, like the steam built up by the bubble, like it would have, like, think about it, it would have been really random. So that definitely generated a lot for us.
Obviously, the expectations changed because of the bubble and then the trade for Chris.
Right.
I find it sort of fascinating. We're sitting here talking about Monty and the attention to detail, and then that team ends up adding Chris. You talk about somebody who has insane attention to detail, and I played with him. I know this. He's a culture builder. Is there anything that early on stands out to you? It doesn't necessarily have to be like a story, but maybe it's a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's you and the younger guys being like, oh, this is totally different than what we've experienced before in terms of having a player with that level of leadership.
Chris Paul brings a very unique element to a team. And he's very, very, very critical to the overall flow of a team. So he will run that entire show, So obviously there's an adjustment to the way he plays, but it's not hard because he's going to put you in a very, spot that you can be successful in, an advantageous position. So there's definitely a lot of change associated with that, but we expected that. Now, when we first started that season, I think we started in like 9-9. We lost to OKC who played nobody that night at home. And so we had to sit down with our team like, we're beating good teams, but we don't have enough attention to detail on these bad teams. Like we can't lose to, these sub 500 teams. We can't have a sub 500 record versus sub 500 teams. Like that's unacceptable. So everybody collectively kind of came together and really locked in on that. So you have Chris, who's high attention to detail, Mont, whose attention to detail is, high level, and then everybody else is like, all right, we got to all turn it on at once. So it was a big emphasis as we went down the stretch of that season, and it was a huge part of our success was just that whole entire, being led by those two. It was easy to then pick up the attention to detail.
Well, to that point, we haven't really talked about it yet, but the three of us have talked about it with Book in particular and the jump that he made.
Yeah.
At what point were you like, okay, this is a guy that was like, we knew the talent was there, to this is, a premier guard in the league?
When did I saw it immediately. I think it was just a matter of circumstance. I mean, so circumstance is funny because it allowed him to fully develop his game at like 19 years old, where he's taking every shot imaginable and put in positions where the game is his playground. So you give him that opportunity, and then you turn around and put a solid team around him. I saw it from day one. Like, he's just a killer, and he has that. He has that about him, where he's step on the court every time to kill the person in front of him, like straight up.
By the way, he had that his rookie year. Like,
he can, yeah. That's
like, I remember,
and so he's able to
guarding me and like us going at it. He's as competitive as like anyone.
Yeah,
I mean that like legitimately, I was like, oh, this guy, this whatever it is, like he got it.
Yeah, so I saw it day one, and there was always like I think a conversation of like, can he be, a championship caliber like number one option? Well, yeah, I think that was proven.
Yeah, I think.
How do you when you're playing against a guy, how do you sort of like make the calculation of like they are a killer versus they're just talking? Like what's the as an opponent?
Some of it is just result. But,
I feel like it's kind of easy.
Like, I remember we had a game in Philly my first year there. So this was 17-18. This is before you were there, and this dude, like, I want to say he had 48, but he might have had 54, and we threw every defender at him, and I had been asking this is back when I used to guard people. Like, I had been asking. I was like, Lloyd Pierce was our defensive coach. I was like, Lloyd, put me on him. This is
chance, coach.
Give me a chance. Because I'm like, I'm watching these guys. They're not into the ball on pick and rolls. Blah blah blah. Anyways, he runs a high pick and roll. I defend it as well as I can defend it, and he picks up the ball and he does that Book thing where he like does the Kobe shot fake 2 or 3 times, and then just launches a 3 over me off balance, well defended, well contested, and it goes in. And yeah, then I look at him and I see in his eyes that he's a fucking killer. Like, it's not rocket science. It really isn't.
Right.
It really isn't.
That's it. That's it. That's it right there. Like, it would be one thing but like he goes out, like he has a very, very elite ability to just score the ball. So like if he was just talking and, carrying himself one way he has the execution aspect of it, and he's had that. He's always had that.